Okay. Hi, and hey, and welcome back to Talk More Talk, the solo Beatles video cast. This is a show that we do every other Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. We talk mainly about the solo careers of the Beatles. Once in a while, we talk about the group as well, when it applies. But for the most part, we talk about the most successful solo careers of all time, coming, of course, from the Beatles. I'm Ken Michaels, one of the four regular co-hosts of the show. You might know me for my syndicated Beatles radio program called Every Little Thing. Also, I'm the co-host of Things We Said Today, another popular Beatles talk show podcast. And I have my own YouTube channel as well, Ken Michaels Radio, which is all Beatles content. I'm being joined by my three regulars, as always. We have the queen of Beatles social media here, who has outdone herself, fixing up her place with the Christmas tree and all the fixins, actually. And she is the she is the author of Songs We Were Singing, Guided Tours to the Beatles' Lesser Known Tracks, Michael Jackson FAQ, All That's Left to Know About the King of Pop, and also Fandom in the Beatles, which she collaborated on with our colleague Ken Womack. And she is just everywhere, really. She does classes online on the history of rock and roll, about Aretha Franklin, about Stevie Wonder. You know, there's nothing she can't do. And that is our own Kit O'Toole. Welcome, Kit.
Now that's an introduction. Hello. Hello, everybody. Hi, ho, ho, ho. And welcome to the show. I've got my ugly Beatles Christmas sweater on. I've got
it's
my
lovely.
Santa...
I like it.
Yep, that is what it's really called. That is the name of the sweater. I don't think it's
is
ugly,
it really?
That's what it was. That's what it's called. I got it from the Vesper Beatles fans catalog, and it was called Ugly Beatles Christmas Sweater. So I think it's cute.
You can't have the words ugly and Beatles together. It
that
just
is
doesn't
very
work.
true.
It's just impossible.
Yep. So so I'm ready to have a fun, merry show tonight.
Okay. Also, we have with us one half of the team of Two Legs, along with Annie Nichols, always putting out one good show after another. You can't keep up with them. There's just so many that he puts out on a weekly basis. And that's our own Tom Hunyadi. Hi, Tom.
Hello, Ken. Good to see you. Hello, everyone. Merry Christmas. Hopefully, in whatever you guys celebrate, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah,
Festivus.
Yes, Festivus. All that good stuff. We hope you guys are having a wonderful holiday season, and we're looking forward to having a little holiday cheer right here, right now. So let's get to it.
And also, we have a man who's the biggest thing on the internet. His own
he is
YouTube channel, Mean Mr. Mayo, does all kinds of things on there. Lots of Beatle programming, Fab Gab. Lots of rants. He takes you through his local record store and tells you all the new stuff that he's picking up throughout the week. And that is, of course, Joe Mayo. Hi, Joe.
Hi, Ken. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Good to be here as always. Looking forward to a fun show.
And we should point out that this is our last show of the year for 2022. And what we thought we'd do, we divide the show up into two parts. We're going to talk about what we consider to be the highlights of this past year. And then I thought, and for quite a while I wanted to do this, the second half of the show, we talk about this album, Ringo Starr's I Wanna Be Santa Claus.
There you go.
Ringo is the only Beatle, the only one that's ever put out a Christmas album, legitimately anyway. So we're going to talk about this album in detail, get everyone's thoughts on it. We'd love to know what you guys watching think of this album. But as usual, we have the latest Beatle news to get to. This is going to be one of the briefer newscasts. We'll start with news about a new film on John Lennon that'll be coming out next year called Borrowed Time. Alan G. Parker has been working on it, and you might be familiar with that name. He directed the documentary, it was 50 years ago today, The Beatles, Sgt. Pepper and Beyond, and he says they completed 50 interviews about John for this release. There's
Wow.
supposed to be some excellent unseen footage and at least 2 or 3 new revelations. A photo used to promote it reads, "The legend you thought you knew, think again." All right.
It's
That's
always
sometime.
good. Yeah, I think what he said there, I mean, I think it's always good to find something new. You know, I mean, we hear the same old stories with all 4 of them, you know, for decades. And then, you know, what, Adrian and Alan were able to do, and the McCartney legacy, and what hopefully, what they're tagging on this is what they're finding something new for this new documentary. Bring it on. I mean, anytime we can learn something new, I say, let's do it.
Who could argue with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Also, one of our listeners, some things we said today, they go by such strange names. Nuclear Magenta was at the event at the Paley Center in New York City with Michael Lindsay Hogg and Jonathan Clyde from Apple Corps. And this listener said that Jonathan Clyde said at this event that restoration is underway for the Let It Be film, with no news about distribution or a proposed release date. All right.
Okay. Well, you would thought they would have done that while they were doing Get Back.
Yeah.
Maybe they were doing it, but they're just letting us know about it now. Who knows?
Okay, fair enough.
At least we're hearing about it from a top name at Apple. There's a special collector's edition of Uncut magazine devoted to Paul McCartney. It's 148 pages long, called The Ultimate Music Guide, with in-depth reviews of every solo album. Uncut's website reads, Uncut takes a look at the collaborations, parties, jokes about Eric Clapton. A starry cast celebrate Paul as he turns 80. If you want more information about this, go to uncut.co.uk. All right. Thanks to our listener, Pete Garcia. We know that Julian Lennon just did an interview for Kevin Nealon's podcast show called Hiking with Kevin, which you can listen to on his YouTube channel. It's 16 minutes long. A reminder that the new documentary, If These Walls Could Sing, on the history of Abbey Road Studios, directed by Mary McCartney, will be premiering on December 16th. That's this week. That's this Friday on the Disney Plus channel. It will include new interviews from Paul, Ringo, Elton John, Nile Rodgers, Roger Waters, Dave Gilmour, and others. And just before the show, everyone here was telling me they were noticing online that there was a premiere in London where they were showing it. And Paul and Ringo were there and their kids.
Elton John as well.
Yep.
Very nice. We have to announce the passing of a radio giant, and that's Norm Pattis, who was the founder of one of radio's biggest companies, the original Westwood One.
Oh, wow.
That company, the company syndicated the wonderful radio series, The Lost Lennon Tapes, which later morphed into the Beatle Years. And for those of us that listen to syndicated radio shows, Westwood One carried Casey Kasem's American Top 40. That was after Casey left ABC. They also carried Dr. Demento's show and Mary Turner's Off the Record. Pattis also started the successful podcast company called Podcast One. Norm Pattis was 79. So thank you for bringing us the Lost Lennon Tapes.
Yes, indeed.
We used to carry that on WDHA when I worked there at the radio station in New Jersey, and it was on 6 o'clock in the morning on Sundays, and then I did a 3-hour radio show on the Beatles. So it was 4 hours of Beatle programming, but to kick it off with the Lost Lennon Tapes.
I remember waking up and had my cassette recording ready.
You weren't alone.
Yeah.
Weren't alone. There was always something every single week on that show that we hadn't heard before, whether it was an unreleased song or an alternate take of a song or an interview. Such a great radio series. I'd like to just add something that I reported to our last show about the passing of Jeff Wanfor, who directed the Beatles anthology, as well as Paul's "In the World Tonight" documentary and the Live at the Cavern Club concert. One of our listeners, A. T-Mock, said that Jeff directed a TV documentary in 1986 called Handmade in Hong Kong, The Making of Shanghai Surprise. And Tom Brennan, one of our regular listeners, wrote in that he directed Paul's documentary for Put It There. Not only that, he also directed the videos for Young Boy and The World Tonight. So a lot of great work done there by Jeff Wanfor. Okay. There's a brand new video out now for Here, There, and Everywhere. This is now the third video made, all animated, for the release of the Revolver archival set. Have you guys seen the new one? Yeah.
Yeah, bits and pieces.
Yeah. It's basically animated footage of the Beatles taken from various movies, and it's interspersed a lot with the dancing girl that you see in Yellow Submarine during the Lucy in the Sky sequence. It's very well done. And finally, Super Deluxe Edition is putting out a Blu-ray. This is strictly audio for the concert for George. Something to look out for there. Such an amazing concert. And that's it. Rather short Beatles newscast, but we got a lot to talk about here on the show.
Yes, we do.
First of all, we thought we'd look back at this particular year of 2022. And each of us will list what are the top highlights, and maybe even, if they feel like it, some honorable mentions. You know, it's kind of funny. When we first were talking about this, I was thinking not that much happened in the past year. And I can mention a few real main things. And then I started looking at all the books that came out, you know, and then it turned into something like 10 items here that I wanted to mention. So I thought we'd go around the table here and find out from each of you what you would list as being the greatest moments or releases of 2022. So let's start this time with Tom.
Wow. All right. Well, you know, as for this year, you know, seeing Paul again, thanks to my buddy Rick, my new buddy Rick Rogers out in California, invited me to see him at the SoFi Stadium. Was the absolute highlight of the year, you know, for me. You know, being and we were close, and he still sounded good. You know, yeah, we talk about it. There's a few moments where it's not, 76 Paul, but it's still Paul McCartney, and everybody was on their feet for the whole damn show, and saw some people crying, and I was, one of them. And but that's absolutely the main highlight for the year, hands down. Music wise, look, we talked about Revolver. That is, probably music wise, that was probably the main release of the year. That way, I mean, it wasn't the fourth quarter that we've had in the past, right, where we, 1 month after another, we didn't have any shortage of ideas for shows, let's just say that, unfortunately it wasn't like, well, maybe fortunately, give our wallets a little bit of a break, but Joe and I, we had something that we got something pretty special this year, which I guess I'll just start off with that, with releases. And this sucker right here.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
What's that?
Look at.
Are you gonna kiss it again?
Well, why not?
No. It's okay. Well, you're gonna get a splinter in your lip.
Yeah, I know. But not just for the collecting aspect of it. This was really just a beautiful, amazing, well thought, put together set of 80 singles from the man. And I'm up to coming up, and so far so good. All of them have been perfect, no skips, no warps. The great quiet pressings. I'm thinking they're probably from digital source myself. They're probably not remastered from the original analog tapes, but just amazing. I know we were all hoping for Back to the Egg in London Town. We still are. but this will keep me busy until and until then. So yeah, I mean, yeah, we know it's missing a few singles here and there, but I'm not going to complain about it. It's absolutely perfect. And Record Store Day this past month, or I mean the past couple weeks ago, I was really happy that this was released. Um, you know, revisiting this like we did on our last show, I just fell in love with this album. I really did. And again, it was just one of those albums where I just, just another Ringo effort. But man, listening to it again, I really just, man, I'm so grateful that that this was, we gave this album another chance, and I'm, it's great. All right, book wise, yeah, go ahead, Ken.
No, that's why we do another listen.
Yeah, that's why we do it. Yeah.
We discover the album and we appreciate it more for some of us. So,
absolutely. Book wise, now, we had this young man on, and I wish I could say that there was something music wise from all four camps. George and John as well. I wish I could, say, oh, this George thing, this John thing was a highlight too. I wish we could do that. But George wise, I'll tell you, I was really, really happy with Owen Ling's George Harrison in the 70s book. Yeah, he's got some opinions that people might not agree with, but I think that's one of the charms of the book, and I really I'm proud of him. And we'll be talking with Owen next year in a new Paul George relationship series of shows that we'll be doing starting next year. But I think this is a worthy read, and you got to look at it. He's younger than a lot of us, and so his his ideas and his perspectives are going to be a little different. So.
Right.
I give him credit for, taking that approach. Something I'll be mentioning later on in the show.
I think Tom's freezing.
This sucker right here.
Oh, there you go.
This
He's
is
back.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, you're back.
Okay, good. Thank you. Since 2016, when they made their Facebook page, I was dying to get my hands on this book, and what Adrian Sinclair and Alan Kozin were able to do with this book is just a revolution. It's well worth the read. You can be any level of your fandom of McCartney, you'll get it. It's not a hard read. It reads smoothly. And I cannot recommend this book enough. For me, this is the book of the year, bar none, or hands down, I should say. And comes out tomorrow as the official release day, Wednesday. My co-host and from Two Legs and my co-host here from Talk More Talk will be there at the Grammy Museum or the Wednesday, I should say, right? Wednesday
It's
is
Wednesday.
Wednesday the 14th.
I wish I could be there.
Yeah.
The doors open. Doors open at 6:30, and the interview starts at 7:30 at the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey.
Right. Exactly. So and I'll talk about the interview we did with both of them later on in the show. For the fifth one, for release wise, is they're not cheap, folks. And if you can get your hands on any of these books, I highly recommend it. Again, and that's the fourth volume in the A is for Apple series. Now, this is all about Apple, the business Apple, the musicians that were signed by Apple. You get memos, you get letters, you get contracts, you get labels. These really are just amazing sessions. All things regarding the Apple business. And this is the fourth volume. So, and look out! All of these are just massive, over 700 pages of info. And you would think to yourself, you seriously 4 books over 700 pages just on Apple? Yeah. What they're able to collect and get from other people to get in this book, it's mind blowing. If you can get your hands on any of these, Yes, they're not going to be cheap, but you will learn a lot. So that's that.
Yeah,
My honorable, what's that?
no, I'm just going
Yeah,
to say that apart from all the releases that were on Apple, I'm sure that
yeah,
they tackle, because I don't own it. I really wish
right.
I did, but
Hmm.
probably a lot of the artists that had music publishing deals and maybe
Yes,
have,
yes.
have any
Yeah.
records out,
Hmm.
that you find fascinating too.
Hmm. Absolutely. And then honorable mention, I just started digging into this, but I just, I wish the hate would end for this person.
Hmm.
It's really got to stop. John loved this person. If you can't accept it, just don't say anything. And it's just that easy. And then it's this book right here from Mandolin. And it's just getting in, like I said, just getting into it. And she's so passionate about Yoko, and Ken's interviewed her,
And
buddy
Joe.
Joe's here, and
Mm.
Joe's interviewed her, and really just watch those interviews and you'll get a sense that she's more than just a wailer, somebody that just wails on stage. You know what I mean? Or screams or whatever you want to call it. She's just
Unfortunately,
so much
Tom,
more than that.
Mhm.
well, I agree with you. There's too many people
Yeah.
out there that just don't want to believe that.
Yeah, it's
No, I
ridiculous.
Hmm.
know,
It's a
I know, and
shame.
it's unfortunate. It really is unfortunate. But this
Yeah.
woman, Yoko, is an amazing individual. And the more I learn about, I was a hater too. I couldn't stand her, you know. But then you know what? I kicked myself in the ass. I learned more about her, and now I admire her. You know,
Hmm.
she's really just a
Right.
remarkable woman that just
Very
deserves all the respect.
misunderstood.
Yeah,
Yep.
right.
Exactly.
She deserves all the respect in the world, and so does the author for writing this book. So that's my honorable mention.
Okay. Is
Yeah.
that everything?
Yep, that's it.
Okay. Very good. Joe, how about you?
Well, I think I'm going to go a little different direction here because in 2022, I would say it was a little bit of a rough year for me personally. However, one of the good things about it was that I wound up getting to see at least three Beatles,
Hmm.
in person, and I'll get into that, which was my highlights first and foremost of the year. Well, first we have Paul. I got to see Paul in June, in the summer, and in concert again. He really impressed me again. Just when I thought, well, maybe it's getting a little rough for Paul, which it sometimes does. Vocally. I had a great time at the show. I met Ken there.
Hmm.
I thought it was a fine show at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. But even more of a treat for me was that before the show, we got to see Paul up close in a limousine, which he drove right in front of us. Not came right up with the window open and waved at everybody, and that was a big deal to a longtime fan like myself. So I really treasure that memory.
Hmm.
But also, in addition to Paul, got to see Ringo and his all-star band in New York
Hmm.
City at the Beacon Theater. And I went on it was a beautiful June day. Sun was out. It was a perfect day. So nice that I stopped by to see the Dakota and Strawberry Fields before the show, and pay a little memory to John. It was, going to Strawberry Fields, and it was nice before the show started. So I was able to do that. And then the show was again fantastic. Unfortunately, on my show, I believe people were getting COVID in the band, and Edgar Winter was not there. And I kind of miss seeing him.
Hmm.
However, I'd seen him before, doing
Hmm.
Frankenstein and so forth. So at least I'd have gotten to see him. But that was another fine show again. And can we say what we always say? It's hard to believe Ringo's 82. It's hard to believe Paul is 80 for that matter.
Right.
They're doing this. They're looking and so well, and they're very vital and energetic. And then even George, I was happy near the end of the year. I got to see a concert for George on the big
Hmm.
screen. Yeah, it's such a wonderful concert. I watch that at least once a year, sometimes twice on my DVD. Maybe I'll get the Blu-ray, you know. And it was great to be able to go into a theater to see that. It was the 20th anniversary
Hmm.
of the performance. So that was good. So George got a little attention in there too, which I thought was fantastic. And I also had a bucket list dream come true when I got to meet Pete Best, the one of the original drummers for the Beatles. And I had opportunities over the years, but it just never synced up right to meet him. And I said, I'm going to take a ride to where he was. It was a bit of a journey for me, but it was still worth it to get to see him and get his autograph and talk a little bit and get a photo with him and all that. So it was a real Beatle year for me getting to
Hmm.
interact, see the Beatles and three of the Beatles, so forth. And then as far as releases, I mean, what can I say? The box set, the Paul McCartney 80s singles box for 80 singles, not 1980s, 80 singles that Tom so adequately talked about. I mean, it's terrific, and the sleeves are so cool too, from different countries, and it's such a good representation of his work. Probably the last time I was that impressed was probably Pure McCartney, which kind of did a good overall view of his career.
Hmm.
So that was really nice to get at the end of the year. We can't
That
have.
was that was
Yes.
that was a shocker in a way. We
Yeah.
weren't expecting that at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, it was
We
pretty
heard
fast.
we
Pretty
heard there was
fast.
going to be an announcement, so I think most of us thought it was going to be the archival box
Right.
sets for
Yep.
London Town
Right.
and Back to the Egg,
Right.
or another
And
album.
hopefully we'll get those as well. So isn't it? And of course, I got to mention Revolver. The next big deluxe set, which was really exciting to get, and gave me even more of an appreciation for that album, if that's possible. We did a show on that, and I've done a few videos on it. It's just that you take things for granted after a while, and you just say Revolver's Revolver. We know it, the great album Revolver. Hey, what's to be discovered? But when I was listening to it, I just started thinking, wow, they really were experimenting big time here. It just really drove it home, especially when I was listening to all the bonus features, which are always the selling point for me. The extras
Hmm.
that are on there. And I'm going to give a nice nod to Ringo's latest EP, EP3, especially Free Your Soul,
Yes.
which is a
Yeah.
real
There you
revelation.
go.
Oh, cool. I don't have mine ready yet. So,
Usually Tom's always ready.
Mhm.
yeah.
There. Never,
Oh, yeah.
never
Wait a
count
minute.
him.
Wait a minute.
Never count him
I
out.
do have it
Never.
nearby.
Count me out yet.
Free
Yeah.
your soul. Yeah, that was a real highlight, and I'm just glad Ringo is still putting stuff out, and good stuff too.
Hmm.
So that's really my highlights. And Tom mentioned, of course, Old Wave Record Store Day, which also was on CD. Kit, did you ever
Mhm.
manage to get a CD, Kit?
No, I haven't gotten the CD. Gotta
I
do
felt
that.
terrible because my store had one more copy sitting in there for like a
Oh,
couple of days, and then I went to, I was gonna get it for you, and it was sold after a
oh,
couple of
shoot.
days.
That's
You know,
okay.
but
I'll track it
yeah,
down.
it was good because that album, it was not really out in the U.S. on vinyl,
Hmm.
so it was good to have a vinyl copy of that and on
Mhm.
smoked brown
Right.
vinyl too, which was fun. So
Brown
yeah, that
smoke. Brown
brown
smoke
smoke,
colored vine.
smoke colored
And
wax.
the crappy thing is that it wasn't included in the UK record store days, so the UK still hasn't gotten Old Wave.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What a
they
shame.
got screwed.
Yeah.
Well, and
Well,
that's all she wrote on my list. If things come to mind, I'll let you know during the show. Those are the what standouts for me.
okay. It'd be ironic if I had the longest list when I was complaining that there wasn't that much. Anyway.
Sounds like you might.
No, I think Kit might top me though. And
Oh.
You are next.
Okay, well, yeah, mine is a combination of experiences and releases. Number one, as Joe and Tom have been talking about, yeah, seeing Paul live, and I almost didn't. So I have to give a shout out to Ed Chen, who nudged me and said, "Come on, you got to do it." And so met him in Orlando, and we and Joe's going to take a break, and so
Wait a minute.
I'm just
Let me
joking.
interrupt again. Hold on a minute.
I'm just kidding.
How can I forget something?
Just joking.
Hold on.
Oh yeah. Oh yes.
I got that too.
I just took against live at the Greek Theater from 2019, Ringo Starr Record Store Day. That was also exciting.
Of course. There you go.
I just thought of it.
Yep. There you go. So anyway, so seeing him in Orlando, and as everybody has been saying, yes, he doesn't sound like he did in the 70s, but it was such a joyful concert. I think part of it was, and it was the case for me, it had been the first concert I went to since the pandemic. So, and I think that may have been the case for some other people too, because everybody was just ready to party. I mean, everybody was just having such a good time. It was a beautiful night, no pun intended. And and there was and such a diversity of ages there. I mean, even more than I've seen at previous concerts. That's what really struck me. I mean, the first time I saw him in '89, I was a senior in high school. I was definitely one of the youngest people there. No doubt about it. Not at this show. I mean, it was like all different ages. I mean, I was among, the rare few that was younger at that '89 concert. There were tons of teenagers and 20-somethings, 30-somethings, I mean, and up. It was just so great to see. I loved it. And the band was in top form as always. Got to meet up with friends before the show that were having a tailgate party. Some of them I knew in person before, others I only knew on Facebook. It was just such a joyful atmosphere. I loved it. So glad I did it, and so glad I splurged a bit on floor seats, which I'd never done before. So, I mean, it's a completely different experience on the floor than in the nosebleed seats. I will completely agree. Going to be hard to go back, but in any case, that was hands down my favorite moment of the year. Was also wonderful to finally have fests in person again. That was I mean, so good to see everybody again. At the New York Fest, to see, and Ken, you were a big part of this, to see, even though it was on Zoom, Peter Jackson and Michael Lindsay Hogg.
Yep.
See them have that conversation. Two directors.
Right.
Just shooting the breeze, and hearing them talk about their craft, and of course, what they were doing. I mean, Michael Lindsay Hogg, what he was going through directing Let It Be, and then Peter Jackson, of course, going through all that film to put together Get Back, and to hear Peter Jackson asking Michael Lindsay Hogg, "Now, what did you do when you were?" Just incredible. I could have listened to that all day. I'm sure.
Despite all the success that Peter Jackson has had, and yet he looks up to Michael Lindsay Hogg, So, that was an incredible moment for sure. And one of the greatest moments probably in the history of the fest.
Yep.
Having the two of them together. And we all knew, Darren DeVivo, myself, Tom Frangione, how well Peter Jackson can talk and talk and talk. You probably just had to have one question ready between each of us, and that would carry the whole interview. But once Michael Lindsay Hogg joined, we couldn't get a word in, and it's like we didn't even want to bother.
Just sit back and watch.
Yes. you know, it was a really magical moment.
It really
Well, all you had
was.
to do was listen to your things we said today episode, and you can tell how much he, like to talk, 4-hour episode.
I still can't believe that even happened.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it just was incredible. So it's just one of those moments where you just felt privileged to be there and
Right.
and just watch this. You know, you felt like a fly on the wall or something.
Right.
So definitely a moment I'll always remember. And at the Chicago Fest, meeting George Slaybaugh, who was a great friend of Mal Evans. And never forget, Peter Hicks, who's a good friend of Ken Womack's and is a big part of Ken's book on Mal Evans coming up next year, which I'm pretty sure we're all going to cite in 2023 as being one of the big highlights. But have Peter Hicks come up and introduce her to me, and she was just the sweetest person. She was a part of our 100th episode, in fact. But to have her say, hey, do you want to see one of Mal's letters? And pull out this Ziploc bag and then, pull out a letter and just hand it to me. And, and I felt like I should have gloves on or something.
Yeah.
I mean, I just was like, really? And so, and she hands me this letter. And I mean, it was like holding history. And in my hands. And I mean, I just couldn't believe I was holding this letter, and he's writing about saying, yeah, we're finishing recording Sergeant Pepper. I'm writing this in the studio and blah, blah, blah. I mean, it was just incredible. I mean, totally unexpected. Just felt honored to be holding this piece of history in my hands.
Yeah.
Just another moment I'll never forget. And she is the nicest person. I just so enjoyed meeting her, and I'll, always be thankful that she let me do that. I mean, I just was, I will always be thankful. So that's 3 things. Revolver box set, obviously a huge highlight. I've been wanting them to give the box set treatment to Revolver for a long time, and didn't disappoint. On the whole, I know for much of the year, everybody's been, not everybody, but a lot of people have been arguing on Facebook about the mix and, on the main album and okay, there are some things you can nitpick about. I nitpicked with everybody else, but on the whole, I really enjoyed the set. The outtakes were a lot of fun to listen to. Yellow Submarine, the sequence where you got to hear how it developed. Wow.
Right.
I mean, that was a shocker. I mean, it really was. And even just hearing things like the backing track to Paperback Writer, where you just get to further appreciate what a good band they were. Just things like that. And that book that came with the set. Love the book.
Oh, yeah.
That
the notes are phenomenal. Yeah.
First class.
Yeah.
I mean, absolute first class. So that was definitely a highlight for me. A real surprise for me this year, and I felt like it kind of flew under the radar, was the Harry Benson book, Paul. And I've really been talking this up because as I said, I just felt like it fell under the radar. And it really great book. You all know Harry Benson, of course, took iconic photos of the Beatles. Well, he took photos of Paul as well. They continued collaborating in the 70s and up to about the mid 90s, I guess. And there are some photos in this book that are just, first of all, it's beautiful. It's this big oversized coffee table book. And some of the photos in it I had never seen. And he took some great pictures during the Wings Over America tour. And there's this one photo I've talked about that you just never see, like him backstage, Paul backstage, kind of collapsed on a bench, and he's just, drenched in sweat. And, it's after a show, and he looks exhausted, and Linda said to him, it's in a caption in the book, Harry Benson said, Linda said to him, Paul really trusts you because he would never let anyone take a picture of him like that, and see him like that. And, you know, you don't see him like that
Right.
very often, looking that vulnerable. And, you know, and you also get an appreciation for, wow, I mean, he really, you just see how much he puts himself into a show and how much energy it takes. I mean, you know, he's not a dancer or anything, but I mean, you know, how much energy it takes to do a, you know, almost 3-hour show. I mean, you know, he just looked wrung out.
Right.
I mean, you know, but so you further appreciate, you know, how much of a performer he is. So I was pleasantly surprised by this book, because you just think, oh, more pictures of Paul. We've seen them all, right? No, you haven't. And
Oh,
so
there's plenty we haven't
yeah,
seen.
exactly. So that was a very pleasant surprise for me, and probably runner up. I think I've said 5 already. So so runner up for me is a documentary that came out on DVD this year, The Beatles in India.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. You know, it's one of those documentaries where, you know, you look at it, you look at the title and you think, oh, another one about their, you know, studying under the Maharishi, you know. No, this is a spin on it. You know, this is not only about the impact that India had on the Beatles, but it's about the impact that the Beatles had on India.
Not India.
Right.
Yep.
And it's fascinating. You know, it really is, because there is some rare footage of the Beatles in India, you know, during their time studying there. But they also interview musicians and they talk about, you know, just what impact their music had on them and their culture. I think, you know, one of the musicians said something about, you know, we were pretty uptight until we met the Beatles, and our culture really changed after that. And so I love this film. I just thought that it presented both perspectives instead of, you know, simply focusing on the Beatles themselves, and I mean, much needed, you know, perspective on you know, looking at both cultures. Really enjoyed it. Thoroughly recommend it.
Okay.
And it's really cool to see them go back to the location as well.
Yes,
Mhm.
exactly.
You know,
that
and,
too.
and to see the, you know, the home, the living quarters, and, you know, how time has just, you know, hasn't been kind to the, you know, to the area. But
really hasn't.
Great
And
pick. That was going to be one of my picks too. But you know, I'm glad.
there was
I'm glad you picked it.
there was footage of the Beatles performing on top of the roof of the ashram. There's no audio for it,
No.
but you still got to see them performing there. It's just some stuff you never saw before. Definitely.
Exactly. Yep. So overall, you know, it was, maybe there weren't the splashy kind of events like Get Back last year, but still some really, you know, when you look back, some pretty cool things happened. Some, you know, some really exciting events, and great books came out, good documentaries. So overall, good year.
Yeah.
Well, you know, in some places there was the theatrical showing of the rooftop concert. Of Get Back.
Right.
Yep. Went to that as well. That was a good time.
Yeah. I just wanted to say, because Joe, you mentioned the concert for George. I got to see it locally here in New Haven, and I really enjoyed it. And I watched your video on it as well. But the theatrical showing here did not have the new introductions with Olivia and Danny, so I didn't get to see that. And
it was very nice, but it was short. I mean, but it was very short, but it was nice to have. Yeah.
And you do get to notice, once you watch that showing, how much is missing from the full concert.
Yeah.
Because even you pointed out, the first thing that I noticed was towards the end, when Paul, at the end of the concert, makes that comment about, it's funny how we all got older and George looked the same, you know, pointing to Danny. That was taken out. That wasn't.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful moment. I'm surprised, you know.
But it's such an incredible concert to watch. And whenever you're dealing with a concert like this, where you have an all-star cast, kind of like, you know, Ringo and the All-Stars too, there's so many incredible camera angles that you can have with different stars in the same shot, you know. Eric Clapton behind Paul or whatever. There's so many amazing musicians there on that stage, and it was shot so beautifully. I've always loved watching it. I watch it on my DVD. I watch it every time it's on PBS. It's one of the greatest concerts ever, and I'm glad that they honored George on the 20th anniversary since the concert to show it in theaters. So yeah, great list there, Kit. Great
Thank
list
you.
from everybody.
Mhm.
So I'm just going to mention my top 6 and have a few honorable mentions. I do want to bring up EP3. For me, any new music at all from Ringo or Paul is an event, whether it's a full album or 4 songs from Ringo. At this point, we're dealing with 2 people who are in their 80s and they don't have to be doing anything. And they're only doing what they're doing because they're still enjoying it. So for that alone, I'm grateful. And as Joe said, free your soul. That song alone, because it's like a smooth jazz type song, and it's so different for Ringo, and it's very refreshing to hear that. And I love, the production behind his music. I love how the drums are so upfront and everything that he's been doing in recent years. And I enjoy it. You can't ask for more. Obviously, I'd love to have an album every single year from Ringo, but if this is what he wants to do, 4 songs whenever he feels like it and puts it out at his own pace, great. That's more to our benefit. But just grateful that he's still out there putting out new stuff. I want to mention the Jay Bergen book, Lennon, the Mobster and the Lawyer. Every now and then you need, and it's more difficult to find, topics that haven't been explored. And this was all that lawsuit that Morris Levy had with John Lennon over the song "Come Together" and the copyright infringement case with John using that one line from "Come Together, He'll Come Old Flat Top." It was a really ridiculous thing that John had to go through with this court battle. And it puts into perspective, you think about it, what John had to go through in the 70s between dealing with the Beatle breakup, dealing with Alan Klein, the immigration battles, and then he had to deal with this nonsense too. But
the search for Kyoko.
Yep, there's that. And this book had the actual transcripts of everything John said in the court, over this case. And I had the privilege of interviewing Jay Bergen 3 times this past year.
Wow.
On my YouTube channel, for the Fest for Beatle fans, on Zoom, when it was the Chicago one, and also on Things We Said Today. And they were all great interviews. And I understand he's going to be at the next fest as well.
Yes.
So
good. Yep.
Yeah, he is. And he's an incredibly nice guy. I met him. I kept running into him at the Chicago Fest. He was in the same author's room, but it was weird. We just kept running into each other constantly. And he was just the nicest guy. He came up and introduced himself to me. And I'm like, geez, I should be introducing myself to you. But he was doing that with everybody. Very sweet man.
He was getting to know the Beatle family.
Yes.
And the podcasters and all. So it'll be good to run into him physically for the first time instead of everything being on Zoom. Also, got to give a shout out to Chris Engelhart for his book, Fully Uncovered. I have to admit that for the longest time, ever since I owned a copy of the book altogether now, Beatles side projects have been a fascination with me. Whether it's songs the Beatles wrote for other people, produced for other people, or performed on for other people, there's a whole other universe out there to explore. And some of it's worthwhile exploring. Some of it amounts to songs where if you weren't told that Paul was on this, you wouldn't know it. And then there are songs where there's a lot of involvement, where you can tell Paul had a lot to do with songwriting or playing on it or producing it. Every song has different levels of involvement or collaboration. And there's a lot of incredible stuff that they're still doing, to this day for other people. How many times have we said Ringo's drumming on one track for whoever? Edgar Winter, Colin Hay, Steve Lukather. so it continues. And Chris has been doing this for the longest time. This book, Fully Uncovered, is really just a combination of the first two books he did and updating it. And he's the only one that's kept up with this since all together now. So I commend Chris for that. Also, I have to list, actually my top three could all be number one. They're all that great. I cheated here and I put Paul and Ringo's tours together. I had the chance to see Ringo 3 times this year. And even though, I can complain about the set list over and over and over again, because there's so much great stuff that Ringo has in his catalog that he'll never pull out, and he tends to do the same songs. And same thing with the other band members, but they're having fun. Ringo's having fun. That alone is worth, for that reason, to go and see the show. And the band is so incredibly tight. I can't believe, I shouldn't say I can't believe. These are great musicians. The appreciation that I've gained from all these musicians, especially Steve Lukather, who blows me away with his guitar playing. He's such a versatile guitar player when he does Santana stuff or whatever the songs are. The band is so amazing. It isn't just the people up front, but Warren Ham, who's kind of like, along with, he's sort of like the Mark Rivera of the band right now. And of course, Greg Bissonette, and he does an incredible job on drums. Just watching Ringo and Greg drum together is a joy. Seeing how they look at each other, analyzing the two of them, seeing what Ringo drums, what Greg drums, and how all the band members complement each other. And they look like they're having a blast. And I do believe that they are. And, every All-Star Band tour is a treat. And, just watching Ringo smile throughout the whole thing is good enough for me. And if anyone has still not seen Ringo live, what are you waiting for? All the bands are they're really all amazing. And I got to see Paul twice. As Joe was talking about the MetLife show, Joe and I got to hang out with his friend Robert after the show. And even though we've talked a lot about Paul's voice, for the most part, he was fine. And again, you're looking at a man who's 80 years old, and he gives you a near 3-hour concert. We were kind of hoping at MetLife that Ringo was going to show up, but that was at a time when they had the COVID problem within the band. So I guess for security reasons, to play it safe, Ringo didn't show up. We got Bruce Springsteen there. We got Bon Jovi there. It was quite an event. And the band is, they can do this concert in their sleep. They've been doing it for so long, for 20 years. And, the man puts on a 3-hour show, and it's so remarkable that he can pull this off. I've said it many times. If you're 40 years old, it's draining to be up there on stage for 3 hours. I don't know how he does it. I really don't. So I'm just so grateful that Paul and Ringo are doing anything, whether it's in the studio or live. And as long as I mention Ringo live, this is a tremendous release for CD, for DVD, and for Blu-ray as well. I was talking about the concert for George just now and the great camera angles. You get plenty of that in the DVD and Blu-ray for Ringo live at the Greek Theater 2019. The mix of it's phenomenal. One of the things that I talked about with Joe Thomas, who's the producer for the audio and the video for Live at the Greek, is that sometimes when I'm watching a concert, I can't hear the balance of everything that well. Right. There are times when I couldn't hear Hamish Stewart sing, or in the case of Greg Raleigh, sometimes his Hammond organ playing is kind of drowned out. You don't hear it as well. But this, you hear everything.
Good.
It's such a treat to either listen to the audio or the video. And big highlight is Live at the Greek Theater. And then, of course, you got to mention Revolver. Every Beatles box set is an event. Revolver was a big shock because we didn't see that coming. We found out about it a month or so before it was about to be released. And I'd been guessing for years and years, what about Magical Mystery Tour and Yellow Submarine? I thought that would be, a logical follow-up. Are they going to go back to the beginning with Please Please Me and work their way up? We didn't really know. And Revolver, I love all, the outtakes. I wish there was more. I did complain. Those 2 discs you could fit on one disc, everything that's on there. But what's on there, there's so much worthwhile stuff. I especially love that other take, I've Got to Get You Into My Life, without the brass in there. The demo of Love You Too, and that take where George keeps playing the sitar and it keeps going and going, and I wish it wouldn't end. The evolution of Yellow Submarine, there's a lot of highlights in there. And you got to say, the McCartney Legacy, that could be the #1 release of the year. We just did an interview. Tom just did one with Andy, with Adrian Sinclair and Alan Kozin. It's an amazing book. You're going to learn so much stuff you never knew before about those years from 1969 through 1973. And, we'll probably talk about that more towards the end of the show. A few honorable mentions. Thank you, Tom, for mentioning the Yoko Ono book from Madeline Baccaro. It's called In Your Mind, The Infinite Universe of Yoko Ono. It really is very important, I think, for any Beatle fan, because if you love John Lennon, you should understand why he loved Yoko and what it is that he saw in her. And even if you don't care for her music or you don't care for her art, it helps to understand what John saw in her. And what this book does, it's so detailed. You get to know how her mind works. She doesn't think like the average person. She has a mind all of her own, and extremely creative in so many different ways. And Madeline is a great speaker when it comes to talking about Yoko and all the interviews that she's done. And this book is getting a lot of acknowledgement, and I'm glad to see that happening. But really, if you never understood Yoko, get this book. You'll know what she's all about. Also, Julian Lennon released an album just recently called Jude. We haven't really talked about it here on this show, but all the songs are really good. Thing about Julian is that he's very meticulous about everything that he does. He takes his time. This is his first new album in, I think it's 11 years now. And some of the songs are old songs from the 80s, around the start of his career. He's touched up some of those songs. He's got some new songs in there, and he's got great melodies and great lyrics, and it's produced extremely well. And, I really think it's a solid album all the way through. And it's just a shame that it doesn't get exposure, really, on the radio. Also, Bruce Spicer.
Thanks, Ken. Now I'm going to be singing Donna Summers on the radio all night long. Thank you.
Hey, that's a good song.
Yeah.
Hey, Donna Summers should not be forgotten. Great singer.
That's true.
She should not.
Bruce Spicer's book for the year, Rubber Soul to Revolver. Had the chance to interview Bruce without Sussman this year. Another one of his top quality books, talking in detail about the songs, talking about fans' reactions to those 2 albums. Also, the Yesterday and Today album in between there, and the Butcher cover, and people's experiences with that. It's a lot of fun reading that book. One book that we only mentioned briefly here, and I kind of wish I could just get the authors on my YouTube channel, is The Beatles' Fab Four Cities. That's with Richard Porter and David Bedford and Susan Ryan. It's all the major locations, Beatle locations that you can find in Hamburg and London, Liverpool, and New York City. I'm hoping to get the authors together or maybe individually on my YouTube channel. All right, it's very detailed. So many places you may never have heard of before, and all from those 4 locations. And finally, Top of the Mountain, the Beatles at Shea Stadium, 1965. Really tells you the whole story, how the whole thing happened, about Sid Bernstein, how he contacted Brian Epstein and asked him if he could handle promoting the Beatles here. And he did the 2 shows at Carnegie Hall, everything that led to Shea Stadium, and also interviews of people who were there during that concert and celebrities who were in the audience. It's a good, fun read. So altogether, that alone And there was plenty. It's very easy to overlook a lot of that stuff.
Lightyear, huh, Ken?
Yeah.
You don't have to name every little thing.
Well, I didn't. I didn't name every little
Every
thing.
little thing.
All right.
Nice picks. Nice picks, Ken.
Good fix.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. So let's carry on with part 2 of the show. And we're going to talk about this baby right here.
Mhm.
I Want to
This
Be
bad
Santa
boy.
Claus.
Right.
And
That's crazy that you've got that. I mean, that must be the original because the one that I have is the
Oh,
20th
it's the original.
century
I don't fool around.
Masters.
When it comes
Yeah.
But the funny thing is I just purchased it off of eBay, so I should have it any day now. That one, but it's it's I think this is exactly the same track list and everything.
It is.
I think it is.
It's just
It is.
weird that
this doesn't have that
Yeah.
cheesy 20th century logo on the top.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
But
they
then
reissued
this
it.
doesn't have the Ringo Starr "I Want to Be Santa Claus" on.
Yeah, I think I read they
font.
reissued
Yeah.
it in
Right,
all that,
2009.
Yeah,
I wanna
it's
say.
Nope.
It's
It's 2003.
3.
Oh, 3.
Yes.
Okay.
And I was so
Yeah.
happy that we finally got it on vinyl too.
Yes.
Fairly recently, a year or two ago. I don't even remember when this was, but they're not on colored vinyl. So people might think they are. They're black, just black. It's not, green or red, which would have been nice.
Black for coal, which you're going to be getting in your stocking this year, Joe.
Not me. Not me. Why? Because I'm honest. Not me. Far from it.
I'm teasing.
I know you're teasing.
So this album came out in 1999. This was in between, if you're going by studio albums, in between Vertical Man and Ringo Rama. It was recorded in September of 1998 and also March through September of 99 in a whole number of different studios, plenty of them in the UK, and also What the studio in Los Angeles. A very unique concept this was, because it was half original songs and half traditional songs. And I thought it was a brilliant idea. So some of the songs, if you never heard this album before, some of the songs that you're going to know, the traditional songs, would be Winter Wonderland, Little Drummer Boy. Well, he had to do that one.
He had to.
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. He does do Christmas Time Is Here Again, the Beatles song. Blue Christmas and White Christmas. And then he mixes that with all new songs that Ringo co-wrote with various members of the Roundheads. Mainly Mark Hudson. And Steve Dudas is in there, Jim Cox, a whole bunch of people. So let's just start by talking about when this album first came out. Were you aware of it? Because I'm sure it didn't get that much coverage outside of maybe a Beatles radio program. For someone like myself, I tend to think that, without writing it down, I probably found out about this from Beatles Monthly or a Beatle fan, or a local Beatles radio show. But how did you guys find out about this? Did you get this when it first came out? Kit?
I did not. I did not get it when it first came out, but I vaguely remember hearing about it, probably through Beatle fan. That's my guess. But the promotion on this was terrible. I mean, it really was. In fact, I read Ringo left Mercury after this because the promotion was so bad.
Right.
And that's a shame, because it's a fun album, and it should have gotten more promotion. But no, I didn't get it when it first came out. And as I said, I vaguely remember reading about it in Beatle fan, but that's about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Tom, how about you?
Yeah, not when it first came out in '99, but when I lived in Chicago, first few years I was there, I was right off of Michigan Avenue, and they had a big, huge Virgin megastore there, and that store's got everything, and that's where I did end up getting this reissue of I Want to Be Santa Claus, or whatever you want to call it. And yeah, so it was a few years later, but picked it up, and like Kit, I think it's a fun one, but I'll get more into detail when we get to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Joe, how about you?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I did get it when it first came out, but I don't remember how I heard about this at the time because I didn't have a computer yet, and I don't think the internet was much of a thing in 1999. Maybe it was, but I didn't have a computer. Probably,
It was
Beatles fan,
still dial up
monthly.
and all
Yeah.
that.
You know,
All
I
the
didn't. I didn't
old
have a
days.
computer. Yeah, I think 2000 I got my first one. But you always heard these things, one way or another in the Beatles circle. But I can't remember where I got it. I want to say, was it like Virgin Mega Store or something? I don't
Hmm.
know. I went into a store and I found the CD. It was not heavily promoted, really. Just if you were in the Beatle circle, you knew about
Right.
it.
Right.
And I was happy to get it. And I'll
Well,
talk about my feelings on it as we go.
I'm sure Mark had it in his Beatle fan catalog when it first came out too.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Probably.
probably saw it in there. That's true.
Yeah.
That's probably where else I saw it.
Well, I don't remember struggling to get it, but I'm always aware of the new releases as they happen somehow. So probably a local store near me, I picked it up. But I've always been very pleased with this album. And I often wish that the Beatles did more for Christmas. And of course, we've got the classics. We got Happy Christmas and Wonderful Christmas Time. And in more recent years, Paul covered the Christmas song. But Ringo has been the only one to put out a full Christmas album, which is, I thought it was a great idea. I did an interview with Mark Hudson several years ago, which is on my website, where we talk about the Christmas album. And Mark said to me, Ringo really loves Christmas, and he always wanted to make a Christmas album. So, but the whole idea of making it half and half the way they did it was really brilliant. I got to tell you, I'm so pleased with this album, the way that it came out, because it was executed really well. The original songs, I think, are pretty strong, especially side one, with the title track to I Want to Be Santa Claus and Christmas Eve, which I think should be a classic. Those two songs, really. I can't imagine anyone that's a Beatle fan, if they heard those two songs, not loving it. Really. I mean, Christmas Eve, if you love the sound of Ringo with a song like Good Night, very gentle delivery in his vocals and orchestration like that. Christmas Eve is such a gorgeous song. It would be a standard, if it was played a lot. I really do think so. I mean, if it was placed on a Beatles album and it sounded exactly like Christmas Eve does, it would be a classic, I think, for Christmas. But let's just talk about what your favorite moments of the album are. Is it a combination of the originals or the covers, or do you like one more than the other? Are you more pleased with the original songs, or do you just Tom, why don't you start?
Yeah, I'd say I'm happy that we've got new songs in here. Okay, don't get me wrong. I don't want to sound negative on the new songs. I think the covers suit him a lot better here. However, with the new ones, the new songs, I think they tend to run a little too long. I don't think you should have a 5-minute Christmas song. I just, I think Christmas songs should be, 3.5 or less. But that's just me. I think when you start dragging into like the 4.5, 5 minute, I think it maybe just goes a little long, but that doesn't mean they're bad songs. They just maybe just go on a little too long. But no, don't get me wrong. I mean, you can't Ringo couldn't do this without having the little drummer boy on this. Don't get me wrong. I mean,
Right.
and I'm very glad that he brought Christmas Time is here again. I thought that was really cool for him to be a part of that. And then, listening to it again, and I'll just say this about this one song. He sings OUT spells out, and I'm going, where the hell have I heard that before? Where have I heard OUT spells out? And I'm like, oh, were they playing Queenie Eye when they recorded this song back in '60? But yeah, but it is fun. I mean, I get, Ringo is, I think he's youthful, always been youthful, or maybe like childlike. So I can see him doing a Christmas album where I don't necessarily know if I could see George pulling off a Christmas album for some weird reason. But no, I think, like you said, Ken, I think this was well planned, well executed, and done very tastefully.
I could hear Paul do a Christmas album.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, we could do Paul doing any kind of record, really.
But what songs do you think?
Well, I mean, listen, I mean, Dear Santa is over five minutes, okay, and it maybe just goes a little too long, and especially there's some songs that end with like that orchestration that can go on for like 20-30 seconds, and they're playing around like that opening orchestration that you hear at the beginning of Sgt. Pepper, you know what I mean, and then. So, I mean, it's a very Beatley record as well. I mean, if you can't hear the Beatle influence in this record, then you don't know the Beatles.
Right.
But yeah, again, but we talked about that before, right? With Mark Hudson years. I mean, those records are very Beatley.
Well, Mark Hudson's attitude was, you're a Beatle, be proud of it. And for some fans, they loved it. For some, they felt he went overboard. So everybody has their own opinions about that.
Right.
So, but yeah, still the mixture of the two, I really, I like the combination because I like the way he does covers, and most of the original songs I think are really strong. Kit?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the covers worked the best, and I like that they didn't do just straight covers. I mean, that they didn't just do an exact replica, that they put their own spin on it. Like Winter Wonderland has kind of almost like a New Orleans feel. Like kind of if if Fats Domino were to do Winter Wonderland, really enjoyed it. And at the end when they had that coda that we were walking, I mean that was great. Love that. I mean, Little Drummer Boy, I thought Ringo killed it. I loved it, and I this is probably to be honest, one of my least favorite carols. Because I just always found it repetitive, but I mean this was great. I mean, and you knew Ringo had to do it, but love his drum breaks. When the music drops out, loved it. I mean, I never thought Little Drummer Boy could rock this hard. I loved it. I loved in Rudolph Red-Nosed Reindeer that they even left Ringo made a mistake. His lyrics. I love that they left it in, and he sings Santa. I mean Rudolph, and starts laughing. It was great. I mean that was the spirit. It was great spirit of the album. And how great that they did a version of Christmas Time Is Here Again. Longer. And I thought, please leave in OUT spells out. I'm like, oh, please do it, please, and didn't disappoint. And how interesting. And I should have added this with Little Drummer Boy bagpipes.
Yeah,
when they added,
I heard that too. Matter of fact, I wrote that down in my notes.
Yeah, I mean, I thought, what a cool touch. I mean, it works. Really works. And Blue Christmas, of course, because this is a Ringo album, you got to have some country, and doesn't disappoint. Love the pedal steel guitar, and as we've talked about many times on this show, Ringo really can do country. And it works. And then another thing we've learned is that he loves his reggae, and so White Christmas does it as a reggae. Very interesting. It's one of those, I'm not quite sure. It's one of these, I haven't decided if it works or not, but I give him, I applaud him again for not just doing a carbon copy of every other White Christmas version we've heard. He's putting his own spin on it, and I applaud him for that. The new songs were a bit, I have to agree with you, Tom. Like Dear Santa, that went on too long for me. I thought I liked the 50s feel.
Yeah.
I did
Yep.
like that. I thought, boy, all they need is the sha la 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 kind of backing vocals. That was
Right.
fun. But yeah, little too long. Little too long.
Mhm.
And you're gonna throw tomatoes at me, Ken. I did not like Christmas Eve. That did not work for me. That just did not.
How come?
It just
Tomatoes. Throw the
yeah,
tomatoes.
tomatoes. I just found it dreary, and I just didn't think it went anywhere for me. I just kind of, it was another one that was a little long for
Yeah,
me.
but luckily it picks up like in the middle segment. I mean, it's
Mhm.
kind of slow, but then it does pick up, and I did kind of enjoy that. But then it goes back to being a slower tempo. But
Yeah,
I see
and I
what you're
mean,
saying.
Silent Night slow too,
Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, I get what he was trying, and I get what he was doing, because he was trying to, to change the mood and do a ballad. No, I totally get that, totally get it. But it just didn't click for me. I just I don't know. Maybe it's, we've talked about this before about Ringo and ballads, that sometimes,
Right.
Ringo, his ballads don't always work for some people, and this just didn't do it for me.
Did
But
you like I mentioned before? I always think of Good Night.
yeah,
Did you like the Beatles recording of Good Night?
I like Good Night better than this, for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, Good Night, I don't know. I think I liked the orchestration on it better. I thought maybe here it was a little overdone, whereas I think Good Night was much more, because George Martin really knew how to score,
Sure.
orchestration, and that was really elegantly done. And maybe here it was a little, over the top. But maybe if it had been a little more restrained, maybe that would have helped. But really, that's the only song that I didn't particularly care for, because the other ones, and particularly the covers, I really enjoyed. You can throw this album on at your Christmas party,
Uh-huh.
and this is, I mean, this will get the party started. I mean, it's a fun album. It should have gotten a lot more promotion than it did.
Right.
Hmm.
I agree.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, I'd love to comment on so much of what the two of you have said so far, but I'll let Joe have the next.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll comment on a few things. I'll comment on a few things they said so far. I was biting my tongue on some of them, so now my
Mm.
turn. Okay. Well, the first thing is I'm just so glad that this album exists at all, because
Right.
Yeah.
the novelty of having a Christmas album by any of the Beatles to play every year is fantastic. Would have been nice if Paul had done one at some point, preferably a while ago, decades ago. But now we have Ringo's, and in my opinion, I think Ringo's sounds like he's having a great time. He's
Mhm.
enjoying this,
Yes.
having a good time. That comes through especially on the more, fun songs, zippy songs. I have to disagree though, and while I'm glad that they're doing two different kinds of songs here for Christmas, traditional and original. I think I like the originals a little better. I appreciate both, but
Mhm.
I appreciate the original songs, and it starts right away with the rocking "Come On Christmas, Christmas
Yeah.
Come On," which I
Mhm.
love.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't sound, it's not traditionally like a Christmas song, but I have that on my personal Christmas CD that I put songs on. That's the one I picked from here. The only thing that irks me when I hear it is I wish they had put jingle bells rattling it, kind of
Okay.
at certain points. I think at the very end they used them. But if it would have been like "Come on, Christmas," Christmas,
Right.
come on, I would have liked it much better with jingle bells added to give you that Christmas feeling. But
I
I
hear
think
you.
it's an interesting approach. I think having a all-out rocker like that to open it. So I love that. Um, and then "I Want to Be Santa Claus," I think is just a real cute song, and it
Mhm.
kind of fits Ringo.
Yeah.
Ringo,
Sure does.
I'm Santa Claus. I'm going to give the gifts to everybody. I kind of like. I hear that song sometimes on the radio around Christmas, or in a store or something. I've come
Yeah.
across. I've heard that.
A
Not this
supermarket.
year.
In a
You know.
supermarket, I've heard it.
Yeah, I've heard it, but not like I think I'm trying to think out of this album if there was going to be one Ringo song that kind of signifies his Christmas spirit, or just like you hear "Wonderful Christmas Time" and "Happy Christmas" from Paul and John. What would be if there was one Ringo song? What would you want to hear mixed in every year? Maybe that one. I want to be Santa Claus. Christmas Eve. I just find it very like peaceful and kind of like set in a nice tranquil mood. I like the difference, especially at because the way this is on the album, it's the end of side one. I'm noticing it
Mhm.
kind of like keeps you taking it down a little bit, the party, and just chilling out and trying to imagine a fire on and chestnuts roasting maybe, and you have just a nice easy going time. Remembering a nice Christmas Eve maybe with somebody close to you. So I like that. One song that I didn't hear anybody mention, it opens up side two on the album, is the Christmas Dance,
Mm.
Yeah,
which that's
yeah,
complete lunacy that I love. I just think
Mm.
it's it's so much. It's like a hootenanny, like square dance at the Christmas dance. And I'll be honest with you, I'm winging this whole thing.
yeah.
I don't have notes. I'm doing it from memory.
That's
I'm going to give this a listen though after the show for reasons I'll talk about at the end of the show. Uh,
Mhm.
and I just remember at the end he's doing this hilarious long note. He's trying to hold the
Yeah, he's trying to hold the
Christmas.
note. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's like that's funny again if you take it in the right spirit. By the way, I
Mhm.
should mention my girlfriend said, "Don't you dare mention this." My girlfriend can't stand this album. You know,
Oh no.
when we first got together, like many years ago, I played this in the car, and she's like traditional, and she likes perfect singing and pitch and everything. And she says, "This is not Christmas music. This is not Christmas music." Well, around here it is, babe. That's the way it is here. I think Ringo said something like that once when he's been interviewed, or maybe a couple of times. Uh, it's the biggest hit in our house when he talks about his new album or something. I heard him
Mm.
say that a couple of times. It is in our house or something like that. Anyway, so yeah. And then Dear Santa, I'll tell you when Tom was saying the songs are, I don't like a long song or here.
I didn't.
I,
Yeah.
I I I was trying to think. I mean, I don't have it. I don't know these all perfectly, but I didn't remember a song that was long in my mind. But even Dear
That one's
Santa, it's been a
longest.
while since I
Mhm.
played it.
Mhm.
It ain't been around since last year, probably. So I don't remember it being long. I got to listen for that. I'll listen for
Right.
that. But yeah, I mean, I have fun with the original. As far as some of the covers, Winter Wonderland's okay. Um, Little Drummer Boy, you had to do it because Ringo, putting a rock drum on there for Ringo. I mean,
Mhm.
you got to do it. Joan Jett did a Little Drummer Boy. She's not a drummer, but if
Oh,
Joan
I should
Joan
hear
Jett could
that.
do it, it's not that good. Joan Jett, but Ringo should do it if Joan
Of
Jett can do
course.
it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Now, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Now, look, I said this is fun. And I like Ringo, like I said, stretching the note at the end of the Christmas dance, and he's having a grand old time, everybody. But I take issue. I don't like the mistake. It drives me berserk
Really?
that
I
they
think
left
it's
that in.
fun.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, you can't like fix that. I don't know.
Well,
So
the mistake is
There's
is
times,
yeah.
when he wants to be
everybody's
loose,
different.
you
Yeah.
know.
Sometimes I like mistakes in a song. Sometimes I
And
don't.
you know what?
I didn't
Actually,
like it.
the best part I liked on that was then when he's doing at the end where he's singing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. The last one he goes Ringo the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Ringo.
Yeah.
I just love
Ringo.
that.
Me
It's
too.
very
It's
ad
so
libish.
cute.
Very,
Yeah.
yeah, very ad libish. I don't know.
Hmm.
I just thought it was unprofessional. I mean, like I said, sometimes I like mistakes, but for whatever reason, I don't care when he goes. Then one foggy Christmas Eve, Santa came to say, right? He said Santa. No, he didn't. He said Rudolph. It's like, okay, it's funny. I get it, but I don't know. I just don't like it in there. Don't ask me why.
Mhm.
It doesn't work for me. Um, and what else can I say? Christmas time is here again. Yeah, nice that he did that, paying tribute to the Beatles. Did he? And yeah, that OUT spells out. We always wondered why Ringo said OUT spells out when they did the
Yeah.
Christmas song, the
Yeah,
Christmas messages. Now we know, right? It's Queenie
yep,
Eye.
that's
That's
right.
probably where that comes from. White,
Maybe.
yeah, maybe. White Christmas. I got to listen to that again. I- I- I'm glad he's trying something different with it, like you were saying. I think Kit was saying.
Yeah.
But I don't know if a reggae-ish, and I like a lot of the reggae stuff Ringo does. I love
Mm,
so
Mhm.
much of it.
mm.
But I don't know. I have you gotta give that one another listen. I don't remember. It's kind of an awkward sound for that particular song. It's not bad. I don't find it bad. Just a little. I don't know. Just too different from what I'm used to hearing in the Christmas time. I guess.
I think
I
that's the
gotta.
main thing.
Let's.
White
Yeah.
Christmas is so ingrained in our minds of
Yeah.
like what it's supposed to be that
Yeah.
and this is so different that it's just like, I don't know. Do I like
Well,
this?
I
Hmm.
wouldn't want a ballady one from Ringo. I wouldn't want him singing
Right.
"I'm Dreaming." I
Yeah.
wouldn't
I
want that.
mean, you don't
Hmm.
want him doing
I
Bing
don't think.
Crosby,
I,
trying to do
yeah,
Bing
I don't think
Crosby.
that way.
No,
I know Bing Crosby in this case, although
no.
because Elvis did a version of White Christmas that was also kind of bizarre. You got to hear
Oh,
it. I can't.
right.
Huh.
It was like that was kind of a little bizarre. And
Mhm.
the last track is I'm drawing a blank. I don't think I really care for the last track. I got to listen to it again. I think that's
Mm,
probably the only song that I'm not that wild about. I remember not being that crazy about it. A
very
Paxum,
repetitive. Yeah, it's very
peace,
repetitive and
peace be
very
with you.
Oh,
Indian
yeah.
Yeah.
influenced.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But no, So I mean, yeah. Overall, I'm so glad this is here. That's
Hmm.
Yeah.
what I can say. And it's something that if you want, you can play every year.
Right.
So when you're in the mood. So that's me done.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you said that, Joe, because I say it every year whenever I'm
Mhm.
on the radio. I'm glad to be playing anything from this album because you're not going to hear it anywhere other than on a Beatles show if you're lucky.
Right.
Although we did say, Joe, you were talking about there have been times I've heard the song I Want to Be Santa Claus in a supermarket. You never know when you're going to hear, especially solo Beatles stuff. I will hear once in a while in a supermarket with the PA. But yeah, this is for the most part a very enjoyable album for me. I might like the originals more than the covers. Um, and I do like the fact that it starts off with a rocker with Come On Christmas.
Mhm.
And in the interview that I did with Mark Hudson, you'd find this interesting, but Ringo was talking to Mark about how much he loved Gary Glitter and Rock and Roll Part Two and the whole sound of that record. And so I guess this was their way of kind of creating that. I always
Hmm.
thought of Come On Christmas as sounding almost Instant Karma-ish
Mhm.
in my mind anyway. But they were kind of going for a sound like that with Gary Glitter. And you hear a lot more of the drums there after the vocal lines. So yeah, I love the whole sound of that. And I think it's a good song to kick off the album with. Winter Wonderland, you mentioned New Orleans. When I hear that piano at the very beginning, it reminds me of Rockin' Pneumonia and the Boogie Woogie Flu. It's
Yeah.
got that kind of a feel to it. And I think you said, Kit, how you liked he mixed the song I Was Walking at the end of that. And that's one of the
Oh, I'm
things
not.
that I
Excuse me. I'm not wild about that either. I know it's a tribute. It's a tribute.
Oh,
I know it's a tribute to
now
his.
I'm throwing tomatoes.
Excuse me. I know it's a tribute to his song. But again, I don't know. It's just Christmas songs. I don't know. I just will throw that in there.
well, the whole idea of this album is that it's fun.
Yes.
I said that.
That's
Yeah.
and and
The
it
other songs
works.
are still fun, even though I don't like those two things. There's a lot of fun on there that I will be happy to mention.
Okay. Well, Winter Wonderland, I think, works really well for Ringo, especially in this arrangement. And I Want to Be Santa Claus to me should be a standard Christmas song. It really has a Harry
Yeah.
Nilsson vibe to it, melodically and all. And Mark was telling me that they were always thinking about Harry in the studio for certain songs. And really a very beautiful, simple melody that works very well, very catchy. And yeah, I really love the title track right there. And Little Drummer Boy, what no one mentioned was, as soon as I heard that for the first time, it's like it starts just like Back Off Boogaloo,
Mm.
Oh
you know.
yeah.
Mm.
And
call.
yeah, a lot of you get to hear Ringo do a lot of fills
Mhm.
on the drums
Mhm.
there on that particular song, and it it works with the bagpipes as well. So yeah, really like that. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer works extremely well for Ringo. You could hear him sing it even before you hear the record. It's just his voice is very suitable for that kind of a song. And Christmas Eve, like I said before, I just think it's an absolutely exquisite song. I have no problem with Ringo's ballads, and I didn't really feel that any song went on too long on this album. Maybe Dear Santa, but even still, I think everything was just right with Christmas Eve. Sometimes when Ringo has that really soft delivery, like he does on Good Night, or the song Easier for Me, which is a Harry Nilsson song that was a ballad on Goodnight Vienna. I love that stuff. We talked about As Far as We Can Go from Old Wave.
Mhm.
I love that song a lot. You might think it's overproduced Christmas Eve. I think it works really well. In fact, Jim Cox, who's a member of the Roundheads, who plays a variety of instruments, he should get a lot of credit for this album because he did a lot of the orchestrations and
Right.
for the strings and the arrangements for horns on certain songs. Um,
Keyboards too.
yep,
Yeah.
he plays a lot of different instruments, Jim Cox.
The net,
And Steve Dudas, of course, great guitar work. And I love Christmas Dance a lot. It really does remind me of 1965 Ringo. And the song I Don't Believe You from
Mm.
Time Takes Time has that feel to it. It's like a what goes on type of feeling to it. Although, which one of you said it's like Ringo at the Hootenanny? Which it does feel like that, and
Or the
it's
Wilbury Twist, maybe.
yeah, all right, okay,
Having a Wilbury Twist.
okay,
That's my favorite. This might be my favorite song on the whole album, The Country Dance, actually.
Wow.
yeah, Christmas Dance.
Yeah.
And not only that, but I think that the way that the song ends is clever because it ends cold and then it becomes a waltz with strings.
Mm.
So that was a nice added touch that was put in there. Blue Christmas is nice with a country arrangement, and we all know how suitable Ringo is for country. And I like what you said, Kid, about White Christmas, the fact that it's so different.
Yeah.
It's a funny thing. We grew up on this traditional Christmas music. It's so ingrained in us to hear Bing Crosby sing White Christmas, and so many other people, because it's such a great song, cover that song. But I think if a song is truly great, it can lend itself to a lot of great arrangements. And such is the case with something like White Christmas,
Right.
And even like Where Did Our Love Go on the Bad Boy album.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
No.
Yeah.
No. No. Nope. Nope.
Well,
Nope.
Has Timothy B. Schmidt ever been on the All Star tour?
yeah,
Yeah.
in the very beginning,
he-
the first
he did.
tour, I
Okay.
think. Yeah.
All right.
Well, yeah, with Joe Walsh, so you had
Okay. So he was okay.
two members of the Eagles there. Yeah,
Yeah.
Timothy B. Schmidt does backing vocals on several of the
Yep.
tracks here on the album.
Definitely.
Yeah, so I love most of this album, and I do like the last track. How do you pronounce it? Pax Biscum, peace be with
Something
you.
like that.
It's
Yeah.
kind of like
Sounds good.
it's slow and simple and kind of like you said, Indian, Tom. Sort of reminds me of riding into Jaipur in a way.
Riding in the Jaipur.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dear Santa has that, you said 50s, it's kind of like an Oh Darling kind of feel to it.
Mhm.
But it's a great melody. The background harmonies here on this album are outstanding. The Roundheads are such a great band. Also
Yeah.
got to mention something, when you look at the the notes here, all the liner notes or all the credits actually on the original. I mean, if you're older like I am, you need a magnifying glass to read everything. But I was happy to see that Mark Hudson's brothers are on the album.
I noticed
I mean,
that.
yeah, so imagine what a trip. I mean, the Hudson brothers are such big Beatle fans, all three of them. What a kick it must have been for them to be on a Ringo album together, you know? So yeah, overall, I really think this is a very strong album. I do feel like side one, if you're looking at it vinyl wise, is stronger than side two, but it's chock full of so much great stuff. Like we said, mixture of original and traditionals. And for anyone that's never heard it before, pick it up, and you can listen to it on YouTube.
Yep.
You know, there's no reason on this. I can't imagine any Beatle fan not liking this.
Yeah.
It's
That's
just
true.
impossible. There's going to be songs on here that you're really going to dig.
Absolutely.
So,
and as I said, if you're having a party, if you're having a holiday party, put this
Yep.
on. I mean, it is just so much fun. And Ken, I was thrilled when you talked about Gary Glitter and Rock and Roll Part 2. I mean, I'm thrilled because when I first put this on and that song, the first song came on, and I thought, God, this sounds like Gary Glitter. And so I'm vindicated.
yeah,
I'm thrilled.
I just remembered one thing that was covered in the interview I did with Mark Hudson, and it's something that always sticks out in my memory, and I put it into my radio show. Where Christmas Eve is concerned, there's a line there that Ringo wrote. I see your presence by the tree. And he didn't mean gifts.
Right.
He meant your aura. So it had like sort of like a double meaning there. Very clever.
Oh, presence.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
I always
I like
think about that.
Yeah. No, go ahead and finish.
No, that's one of the many reasons why I love that song.
Yeah, I would like to give a shout out to I think his name's pronounced JD Manns on the pedal steel guitar, especially on Blue Christmas. The pedal steel guitar is an instrument that I've just grown to love over the last 10 years, and just maybe even thinking about trying to play it or something like that. But it's he does a masterful job. We talk about people like Pete Drake and others. Lloyd Green, I think, was the other one.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, he does a fantastic job, especially on Blue Christmas on the pedal steel guitar.
Yeah, and Christmas time is here again is enjoyable. I've usually kind of bashed the song only because to me it's just the chorus repeated over and over and over again. It's not a full, complete song. It works really well. And the Beatles' Christmas message, mixing that, with their comedy and stuff. Yeah, but as a full song, it's not really complete to me. But it's, such an infectious hook. You gotta love it. And actually, Joe Perry is on that recording. He does a lead guitar solo in there. So plenty of reasons to pick up "I Want to Be Santa Claus."
There you go.
Hey, Ringo, do some more. Do a Christmas EP, okay?
Do you think?
Wouldn't mind.
You think we could squeeze in a show on Bob Dylan's Christmas album?
Oh,
did you ever hear that one?
I haven't.
Oh man, you're in for a real treat.
Oh, that's a laugh. Unintentional. And I like Bob Dylan. And oh boy.
It'll be the soundtrack to your nightmares.
Yeah.
Well, now that we lost all the Bob Dylan fans in our audience.
Oh man.
Wow.
All right. So that's our review of "I Want to Be Santa Claus." And really, if you get a chance, if you've never heard the album, really check it out.
It's a lot of fun.
As I've said before, these days you don't even have to buy it, although you should.
Yes.
Just go on YouTube or Spotify and listen to it.
For sure.
All right. So why don't we tell the folks what we've got cooking for each of us at the moment? Let's start with Joe.
All right. Well, I said that I'm going to listen to this again fresh, this album. And that's because we're going to be doing a Fab Gab show where we're going to attempt to rank the tracks on this album from our, guess you could say, least favorite to most favorite song here. Kit's going to be with me on that show. Also, my friend Matthew Turnage is going to be on there. It's going to be Sunday, the 18th, Fab Gab. So you just have to look at my channel, Mean Mr. Mayo. It'll be done live. It'll be 3 p.m. Eastern time. So figure your time there, and we're gonna tackle that. So for the holiday, and if you watch my channel, Mean Mr. Mayo, just have a video up there recently. I found some new Beatles finds that are interesting. One of them being the McCartney Legacy book. That's what we've been talking about, and that's fun. I recently guested on the Ken Michaels radio show, not the radio, but the YouTube channel Ken Michaels Radio.
I don't know why I call it radio. It's not radio.
But I
Why
like
did I
it.
do that?
That's the name of your website, right?
I know. It just
Ed Michaels Radio. I was a guest along with Alan Kozin and Ed Rising.
You call it the Ken Michaels Video.
Should.
We each tried to discuss what we felt were 3 underrated Paul McCartney albums, and I had a lot of fun. So
it's a really good show
within limits, right? Studio albums, not live, you know, and not we didn't do the classical albums or Fireman.
No, you could have done the Fireman.
Oh, you could have done the Fireman. Well, they're not on my list.
Okay,
including for underrated, right? Yeah, and Electric Arguments is not on my list. I like it, but it's not on my list. Underrated. I usually have nothing to say. I have a couple more things to say this time. I did a video with Tom on my channel where we examined the records and of the McCartney 80 singles box, and I mean examine. I mean Tom put rubber gloves on to handle his records.
Ouch.
So if you have like an hour and 15 minutes to spare, you could watch that. And I put something up also for remembering John, who died back on December 8th, 42 years. It was just a trip that I had made last summer to Strawberry Fields and the Dakota to walk past it. But anyway, so that's it. That's it for me, folks.
Okay, Master Thomas.
Oh, jeez. Ken.
Master.
Anyways, we're doing a wonderful little giveaway on this wonderful new book, The McCartney Legacy, and this was the episode that we just posted over the weekend. And if you want to learn how to win a copy, just go to our YouTube channel, Two Legs, a Paul McCartney podcast, and go to the McCartney Legacy giveaway contest video. You can learn how you out there listening or watching, how you can win one of 2 copies. We got 2 copies we're giving away, and I'm really excited about that because what is in this book is hopefully this is it. This is the definitive or part 1, I should say, the definitive bio, music bio, life bio, whatever you want to call it, of one Paul McCartney, and it really is an amazing book. And Ken, did you finish the whole thing, Ken?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I can tell how much you loved it from listening to things we said today while you guys were interviewing Adrian and Alan, and we also got to interview Alan and Adrian, and they gave us 2 hours of their time, and I'm really proud of that video, and it was great 2 hours just talking about the making of the book and what's in the book. So please check that out. Next week, we've got a returning guest. His name is Luca Perazzi, and you know him from the Paul McCartney Recording Sessions book. He's got a new book coming out, which is pretty much all the songs. It's 2 volumes. The first one's supposed to be coming out in January 2023. But not only did we talk about that, but Luca he was a contributing researcher to the big box set, to the 80 singles. So
Oh,
we had an
wow.
exclusive, we had an exclusive interview where you're only going to see on Two Legs, and he talked about what he did for the big singles box set, and it's a really good story. And I can't wait for you guys to check it out next Saturday, or this Saturday, I should say. What is it, the 17th, maybe? Yeah, I don't even know what the date is. But yeah, so you can email us at twolegspodcast@gmail.com. Please look for us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Two Legs Podcast. Yeah, so in this big, beautiful singles box, we're going to be reviewing that soon, and that's about it for now.
Okay, that's plenty right there.
That's plenty. Yeah.
All right, Queen.
All
It's your
right.
turn.
Okay. Well, first, of course, thank you guys for all of your support this year.
Yes.
We can't thank you enough. We couldn't do the show without you. We reached the 100 milestone this year. Unbelievable. I should have mentioned that in the highlights of this year. And we look forward to producing even more great episodes next year. We have a lot of guests that we're hoping to get on next year. So, looking forward to more great episodes. So, as always, you can reach us at by email at talkmoresolotalk@gmail.com. We always appreciate your thoughts, your feedback, ideas you may have for future episodes. You can also follow us on Twitter at talkmoretalk1. Number one. We can check us out on the web at talkmoretalk.com. And of course, you can reach us on our Facebook page. Just look up Talk More Talk, and also right here on our YouTube channel. And please subscribe and hit that like button. Yes.
Can I just want to say a big thank you to everybody. When we first started the show, and actually when we first started the Another Listen series, I was really worried about how the Ringo shows would do on that. And I can't tell you how proud I am of those shows and how well those shows do for us. It just blows my mind that people are watching the Another Listen of the Ringo albums. It's just, I can't thank you guys enough for making those shows as successful as they are. So thank you, everybody.
Absolutely. We love doing those Another Listen shows and the Ringo ones for sure. Right. And all the Another Listen, they're a blast. They really are. And yes, thank you so much for your support of those shows for sure. So there, and let's see, did I mention everything? And you can follow us, of course, if you listen to just the audio version on virtually any podcasting platform you can think of, and you can listen to us on fab4radio.com. Thanks as always to Beatle Ed. He's one of our biggest supporters.
Yes.
And thank you so much for everything you do for us all year and all these years. So I think that's everything there. As for me, I am thrilled to announce, I think I mentioned this the last time, but I am teaching a Beatles related course starting next month, January 12th. This is going to be influences on the Beatles. This is part of my Roots of Rock and Roll series. Now, this isn't going to be the typical course where you're going to say, "Oh, it's Carl Perkins, Elvis Presley," that kind of thing. I mean, those are important influences, no doubt about it.
Well, they're going to be like Marvel comic book characters.
Yeah, totally. That's going to be that's important too. No, absolutely. But
Darn it.
I know.
Ruined that. Here we go. There we go.
Yeah, I knew
that
was coming. I knew that was coming. I'm pleased to say that will not be a feature of this course. What we will be talking about, though, are the lesser known influences, such as British Music Hall, Swamp Pop. What is that? Well, you'll find out. The avant-garde, things like that are just as important as other influences. So I encourage you to sign up for my class. It is going to be so much fun. I'm so excited. This is the first Beatles related class I've taught. So I will have the information on how to sign up on my Facebook page, our Facebook page. So I hope I will see you there. Also, pretty soon, hopefully this week, my Beatles gift guide will be up. So probably the middle of this week. So do check out, look out for that. I'll have it up on my page. It will be at somethingelsereviews.com. So be on the lookout for that as well. So I think that's everything.
I think you forgot one thing. That other new
you got a new
podcast.
show. You got a new
Oh
show
my
coming,
gosh,
don't you?
yes,
Or
that
out?
as well.
Oh.
Thank you, Ken. We are doing well, and thank you for all of your support so far. Those who have subscribed to our Facebook page. I am part of another podcast. It's a monthly podcast called Toppermost of the Poppermost, along with Ed Chen and Martin Quibble. We are looking at songs that were on the charts at the same time as the Beatles when they debuted with Please Please Me, or not Please Please Me, Love Me Do, beginning with October 1962. So we're looking at their songs, but also the songs that were on the charts at the same time and groups that were related, had some kind of relation to the Beatles. Either they worked with them or there was some other kind of connection. So it's really, really having fun with it because we're talking about the Beatles, but we're looking into other kinds of the groups and music that were on the charts at the same time. So we've been having a lot of fun with it. First episode is out. So I'd love to have you take a listen to it. Let us know what you think. So you can find us on Facebook. Just look up Toppermost of the Poppermost. I will again post links on my Facebook page. So hope you're enjoying it so far. And if you haven't listened to it already, please check it out.
Okay. All right. I'm exhausted just hearing everybody.
Oh, we'll be here for another half hour for you.
Yeah.
But you're going to get a mouthful on this book. There's no doubt about it. First of all, we just did a show on Things We Said Today with Alan Kozin and Adrian Sinclair. And that also was, I think, 2 hours long, all about this book. What an intense period this was for Paul McCartney. You think about all that he went through from 1969 through 73, from marrying Linda, the Beatle breakup, the heartache of dealing with the Beatle breakup, suing the other Beatles, starting his solo career, starting Wings, becoming a father. So many things happened, the Wings tours, and it's all covered in this book. I mean, there's so much detail in here for every single song that Paul did in the studio and how many takes were done and overdubbing. And, this is a McCartney fan's dream come true, this book, and can't wait for the next few volumes. It is, dare I say it, Lewis-esque.
Yeah.
Lewis-esque.
Lewis-esque.
That's hard to say.
It's going to be the term.
I'm going to get that word in the dictionary, Lewis-esque. But if you can, check out the brand new interview that we have on Things We Said Today with Alan and Adrian. Don't forget the book actually comes out tomorrow. And on Wednesday, the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey, Alan and Adrian will be interviewed by our good friend, Ken Womack. Doors open 6:30, and the interview starts at 7:30. I'll be there with Darren DeVivo. Andy Nichols from Two Legs will be there as well. And also, you can win this book on my website. Okay. KenMichaelsRadio.com. As you know, every week I do Beatles trivia, and there's a list of 10 great prizes to pick from, either books, CDs, DVDs, Blu-rays, vinyl, and every single week there's a winner, and they pick one of those 10. Right now, the McCartney Legacy Volume 1 is one of those 10 prizes. So check it out. Contest starts from Monday, lasts through Sunday, every single week. And then there's my YouTube channel, which has been a little busy lately. I interviewed Brian Ray from Paul McCartney's band. He has a brand new single that's out called On My Way to You, really good rocker. And check out the video for that on YouTube. And we do some talking about his work with Paul and also everything he's done leading up to Paul. Did you know, for example, that he co-wrote a song that Smokey Robinson recorded? There you go.
I do now.
Wow.
And and really good guy, second time that I've interviewed him. It's on my YouTube channel, Ken Michaels Radio. I also interviewed Greg Bissonette, who's the second drummer in Ringo and the All-Stars, talking about what it's like to be in the All-Stars and why Ringo is his favorite drummer of all time. And he goes into detail, and boy, is he free to talk and to illustrate drums with his hands. He's a blast. He's a hoot, but he's a great guy to talk to. And we also talk about Live at the Greek, 2019, brand new release, which is available in all formats. So that's on my YouTube channel. And as Joe mentioned before, we did a show with Joe and Alan Kozin and Ed Rising. Ed hosts Ed's Pop-O-Matic podcast. I'm glad I said that right. And it's all of us mentioning our top 3 underrated studio McCartney albums. You know, there's one album, only one album, that all 4 of us mentioned that were in our list. What do you think it was? You'll have to tune in to find out. That's all at Ken Michaels Radio. So I think that about covers everything. This has been fantastic. And this, as I said, is our last show of the year. We do want to thank each and every one of you for watching and for becoming regular viewers or listeners of this show. We appreciate all of you, the new subscribers, even the old ones. Old, so old. We started in 2019, but we appreciate it because we know there's so many really good Beatle podcasts out there. Just the fact that you take the time to listen to us is something we really appreciate.
Yep, absolutely.
So yeah, and like you said, Kit, thanks to Beatle Ed for carrying all of our shows. And you know, it's a great thing to know that not only do you listen or watch to us, but also from us you watch our other shows like Two Legs and Me, Mr. Mayo, and things we said today in Ken Michaels Radio. And now there's going to be Toppermost of the Poppermost. You don't need anybody else, really.
No, no.
We got it all covered here. What else do you need? But anyway, thanks to all of you. It means so much to us that you're here watching our show or listening to our show. And this has been a tremendous year. We wish you all the best for next year. Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, Happy Christmas. And I hope you want to be Santa Claus. All right. Thanks so much to all of you. And for Kit and Tom and Joe, I'm Ken Michaels. Thanks so much for being there. And as I close every year, we'll see you all same time next year. Take care.